All right, it's Daryl King here, sharing the mindsets right here in Yonge Street, the Daryl King team. We got a large audience right here. Right? And no wonder we got a large audience. We have very special guests today, Bita Lisi and her husband Robert. Very good personal friends, and as far as I'm concerned, the best paralegals out there for landlord and tenant. So amazing. So another episode sharing the mindsets, and it's going to be an exciting one, as we particularly enlighten a session lined up for audience of realtors, homeowners, and everyone navigating the complex waters of property investment and management. I'm thrilled to be joined by Bita again today. She's a veteran, she's a very good friend, her and her husband. Like, we got a problem, I got lawyers that I recommend to them, right? So they're the only one on my list. So let's start with Bita's journey involved in managing multi-unit investments, leading into the establishment of a property management company with her partner, Robert Lisi, right over there, facing challenge in representing her clients at the Landlord and Tenant Board without a paralegal license. Bita took the initiative to enhance her qualifications. Her dedication accumulated in the founding of Stonegate Legal Services Professional Corporation, focusing on landlord tenancy matters with a depth of real estate life experience. In today's episode, Bita will share her actionable advice and deep insights drawn from her 2 decades in real estate and legal experience. Whether you're stepping into the world of property management or seeking to enhance your real estate portfolio, Bita's expertise offers a critical competitive edge. So let's give her a big hand and welcome her.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bita, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Right? She paid me $20 for that when I get a discount on the next time I use her services. Right? But welcome. You know, I think it was 2021 is when I had you on last, right? It's too long. Because, you know, everybody, and I mean, not everybody has a house, but anyone that has home ownership always even endeavors to endeavor to have like a second apartment or something to build their portfolio up. And now with the rules and regulations have changed so much in favor of the tenants, it's hard for, like, you know, I had myself quite a few investment properties, and I got rid of some because it was just like I needed full-time property management to look after it pretty much, you know. So you understand that better than anybody. And I know some of the cases that you come against are very, very tough. So tell us today, if I'm a brand new person, let's just talk about the first layman. And I tell all my homeowners they should invest in a second property because their portfolio is but one. So you enhance your nest egg by 2 or 3 times as you open up into other doors, right? So explain what that would mean to the average person that owns a house that never bought a second property.
Well, in order to build wealth, what do they tell you? They tell you to go and buy an extra property in order to have a second stream of income, which is what many small landlords do. The problem is that small landlords, not the big ones, because the big ones have deeper pockets.
Yes.
When the small landlords invest in a secondary property, and if they don't know how to properly vet prospective tenants, or if they don't know how the law or the board operates, and they come across a quote-unquote professional tenant, they can find themselves in deep waters. Not just financially, because you can always make your money. It can be financially draining, it can be emotionally straining, it can always have, which always does, have an impact on your family situation as well. So that's why equipping yourself with the knowledge and experience of not only the law, but a legal representative who's well-versed can definitely save you headaches in the long run.
Yeah. So what for any homeowners that are on the audience here, because I invite lots of homeowners to come on, that really that's why you need a good realtor that knows, you know, how to put together, looking to make sure that the people are qualified, and you know, how to put together an offer that's will help you represent you versus just for the tenant, and they get in there and they're not going to pay your rent and you got a nightmare. So if you do everything properly, most times out of not, it should go okay.
Yeah, most times it goes okay. The problem is that when whoever's drafting the lease puts in extra clauses that contradict the law. For example, and we review hundreds of leases, if not thousands a year. For example, one that says that the tenant is responsible for the first $50 of the repairs. Well, Section 20 of the Residential Tenancies Act says the landlord is responsible for repairing and maintaining.
So just that one little blurb, because lots of times you see that where they say the tenant has to pay the first $50, but then they just call up like they may or not call somebody, and then they're complaining to get it
They're
fixed.
complaining.
Right?
So things like furnace filters, light bulbs, I don't know, the humidifier filters, these are the responsibilities of the landlord, right? Cutting the grass, shoveling the snow, salting, the responsibility of the landlord.
So you just got something to my thing here. Cutting of the grass and snow plowing. So most people put the tenant will look after the grass cutting and the snow plowing. So now you're telling me that's a no-no.
That's a no-no.
Right?
Repairing and maintaining is the responsibility of the landlord. So the law doesn't make direct reference as to who's responsible. The law says the landlord is responsible to maintain and repair. That's what the law says. So even if the parties agree and the tenant says, I changed my mind, I'm not going to get out there and shovel your property. I'm not going to get out there and cut your grass. I'm putting in all the labor and you get to reap the benefits.
I know, but there are benefits. If you're, listen, like if I argue on the defense of a homeowner, as the tenant, I have the rights of a homeowner. So as a homeowner, I'm not coming to the house and I'm not parking my car in the driveway. I'm not walking on the grass with my kids or my dog or whatever. The tenant is.
Well, we hope.
Right?
We hope the tenant's not either.
No, but I'm saying, so I always found wasn't, like if you have a condo, you have condo maintenance fees.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So
whoever you're paying the maintenance fee to is taking care of things.
Yes.
So that you don't have to.
Yes.
Right? Now, a landlord can engage a tenant and hire that person as a contractor separate from the lease agreement and say, hey, tenant Daryl, I will pay you $50 on the 5th of the month after you pay your rent in full to maintain the property, to cut the grass and shovel the snow.
So they're going to pay the tenant to do it.
They have to engage. Yes. And if the tenant says, I'm not going to do it, I want more money or whatever the case is, then the landlord has to hire a contractor to do it.
That would be pretty cheap labor, $50.
That's right.
Right.
It would be cheap labor.
Snow plowing today is going to cost $800 anyway, right?
That's right. But keep in mind, it's not likely that if you engage that tenant tenant is going to have insurance, which is why the cost of snow removal is so high, because obtaining insurance is very expensive.
So normally what you would do when you go to rent out a condo or a house or anything, business, anything, you have to make sure the tenants go and put insurance on the property, right? And you have to make sure it's adequate insurance, because they sometimes will put on very, very basic, very limited coverage. So, in a case like this, you still, as the homeowner, you still have to have coverage for the property and the residents and everything else like that. But you have to make sure the tenant also has their own insurance to cover their stuff.
That's right. So in the Ontario Standard Lease, there's a section with respect to insurance. You can opt in or out of insurance. Insurance is not mandatory, meaning that you can't evict someone for not having it, because they can always dispute that I didn't have the money to maintain insurance on the property. Often what tenants do is to satisfy the landlord, they'll go and they'll get a policy, they'll keep it for 3 months, and then after they move in, they say, that's right. Cancel it. And there's nothing that the landlord can do.
So if you're the landlord, it's obviously you got to make sure you get good, adequate insurance, because as she just said, they get insurance because before we let them in the property and give them the keys, we want to see the insurance, right? So she says what they're doing, canceling insurance shortly thereafter, a lot of them. So if there's a fire or something, God forbid, and you don't have enough coverage, or they were supposed to have coverage, and they have none, and you only had a little bit, you could be in big trouble.
But remember, and now I'm not an insurance guy, so talk to an insurance guy. The tenants that are obtaining content insurance, it's only to cover the
Their contents, their own
right?
use.
That's
yes.
right.
I got
so
that.
whatever is damaged as a result of that fire or the flood, their insurance would kick in.
Yeah. So one of the most common ones I see right now for myself is I've got a landlord, so they're out of country. They have a tenant. They were on a lease. Their lease ran out, and they're a month to month. They just, they carry forth. So, is my understanding is the only way to get them out is if me as the homeowner say I'm going to come back in and reside in there for 1 year. There's got to be a minimum of 1 year, or the new owner with an N12 then could take possession, same thing for 1 year.
Same. The N12 can be used for the landlord's use or the new purchaser.
Yes.
But remember, the N12 is a notice. It's as good as toilet paper unless it's enforced by way of an order through the board. So if the tenant doesn't comply with that notice, the landlord now has to commence a legal proceeding. They have to file it with the board, wait 7 to 8 months to receive a notice of hearing, get to the board, advocate their position, and hope that the board sides with them. Because there's no guarantee that if you get to the board is going to end the tenancy. You're rolling the dice at the board. It's like a game of Russian roulette.
So these tenants, because they come in, sometimes they got cheap rent. They've been there for a long time, and rents have gone up dramatically. So they, and they just roll over to the next month to month, and they don't want to leave, right? So, so now I'm a landlord and I'm having financial difficulty. So I either get them out or the bank takes over the property. What happens then?
You still have to have a cause to evict.
So if the bank has taken over, they haven't paid rent in 9 months, and now the bank has put the people under power of sale because they didn't get the rent for 9 months and they couldn't pay the bills, then what happens?
Which is what's happening
That's
now.
happened a lot.
So what happens when a bank takes over is that the bank is stepping into the shoes of the landlord, but the bank has deeper pockets than the landlord. So the bank still has to go through a legal proceeding to get the tenant out if they have cause. If they don't have cause,
Well, if they haven't paid rent in 9 months, is that not enough cause?
that it should be enough cause, but again, when you go to the board, there's no guarantee that the board will end the tenancy. The board visits options like, hey, did you reach out to the tenants to put together a repayment plan? And if not, we're going to talk about a repayment plan at the board. You're dealing with the social justice system. That's what you have to keep in mind anytime you deal with the board. But going back to the bank has to basically go through the same proceeding as a landlord.
So that poor landlord that didn't collect his rent for 9 months, now he still has a mortgage, and so now the bank's saying, we want you to pay up, and he's trying to get to go to the tribunal, so now the bank finally says, we're taking it over.
And that was what was happening a lot during COVID.
Yeah.
So many people lost their properties.
Now, is the government going to change anything back in favor? Like, this is,
Well,
like, of all the things that I see it way too unfair. And I'm not trying to pick on tenants, but I just trying to think of the fairness that someone has invested all this time and they're trying to build up their portfolio, and then they get a bad tenant that I don't want to pay rent, I don't give a shit. It's going to take you 7, 8 months, 9 months, a year to get me out of here.
So let
There's
me comment.
professional tenants like that.
You're right. There are professional tenants and there are scummy landlords. So
Yeah,
let me
both. I
let me
got that.
comment on that, okay? Because many people think that the board is too tenant friendly or the law is too tenant friendly. Let me just comment. The law provides a balance for both sides. The law doesn't say tenant don't pay your rent, landlord don't tend to the repairs. The law doesn't say that. The law says that you have to pay your rent even if there are repairs that needs to be done. The problem is that 5 years ago, if you had a tenant who wasn't paying rent, we would serve notice we would file it with the board. In 60 days, we'd be in front of the board. We would evict that tenant in 90 days,
Yes.
120 days max. Here's the problem. Today, because of the delays of the landlord and tenant board, we're going back to COVID, it takes 7 to 8 months just to receive a notice of hearing. That's where the system is broken. It's not the law, it's the system. So we need to fix the system because the law protects both sides.
So the problem is it's so long to get in front of the board.
That's exactly it. The
Because
delays.
because there's so much going in front.
There's so
You
many
never had
applications.
this much aggravations before because the landlords could get them out much quicker and easier.
That's right.
And now they made it much easier or easier for the tenant that they can avoid
To pull
to
the
get
strings.
there.
That's right. And that's why so many landlords have no choice and they resort to cash for keys. I'm better off waiving the arrears of $20,000 that this guy owes and getting him out in 30 days, which is quicker than a board proceeding. Because at the board, I don't know if I'm going to get an eviction. And that's why cash for keys is so popular now, because tenants know what they can get away with.
Yeah, but if they've been already there 9 months, no rent, and now they want more cash for keys,
There's many of them who do. I know.
right? So when you hear that, so that for most consumers, they hear that, they don't want to buy an investment property, right? So I don't want to scare you because if you look at the condo market is basically 60% investors, right? So the system works, but what you hear is the 2 or 3% that is overblown, that creates enough chaos for everybody, that scares everybody.
That's right.
It's like you got married once, you had a bad wife or a bad husband, or whatever it was, whoever, male, female, whatever. And you can't say everybody's like that,
That's right.
That's
right.
So,
One bad apple doesn't always ruin the bunch.
exactly,
I would say.
right?
But that's why it's so important to vet prospective tenants thoroughly. That's why vetting is so important. We go and we do online dating all the time, right? We vet who our partner is. Why are we not doing this with our prospects? Why are we just taking in the first person who's good on paper?
So basically what Bita's saying is you really need to do your homework before. Where were they? How many years were they at the last place? Was the good track record there the time before? How come they were there, right? Why haven't you bought? Because when the interest rates were lower, might have been a good time to buy, right? If they come down lower again, might be a good time for them to buy. So doing your due diligence. How long have they been at their work?
That's right.
Right?
That's right. And people don't pay attention to references. They don't call references. They don't look at reference letters. I mean, why are we not looking at them? Why are we not analyzing the wording? Why are we not calling references, even if it's their mother, father, brother, and sister? Hey, mom of tenant, would you rent to your son? And if the mother won't rent to the son, should
What does that tell you?
well, right? Should that not raise an eyebrow? I had a landlord say the other day that I spoke to the cousin of this prospective tenant, and the cousin wouldn't rent. And now this guy the cousin wouldn't rent to the tenant that I accepted his application. I said, did you not question why his own cousin wouldn't rent to him? And you took him in?
Shame on you guys.
Come on, landlords.
Right? So you can put yourself in, like, it's like you want to get run over, go just play in the middle of Yonge Street, Chances are there's more traffic there, you got a better chance of getting run over. So if you're already your playing field is already short cash, chances are you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah, I mean,
Right? Do your homework.
and use common sense, please. I had another.
What about the advice of meeting the people before they go in?
That's fine too. Me and my husband Rob do that on our own rental properties. We hold a little open house, and all prospective tenants can come in, and we look at them and how they conduct themselves and what they're wearing and how they speak. And Rob likes to look at things like how clean their shoes are and if they have dirt under their fingernails. He's very detail oriented. But I'm telling you, those little things make a difference.
Well, they do.
Huge difference.
Because if they can't care for themselves, how are they going to care for your property?
That's right.
Right?
That's exactly it.
So you see someone come up, their car is all dirty. There's like junk all in their car. That's their car. How are they going to treat your
right.
house?
No, we're not saying go and peep into their car. We're not saying that.
Why not?
But
I would walk them to their car.
you can walk into the car.
Have a conversation.
That's right. Have a conversation.
Right.
Look at certain things. But pay attention, because what is that saying? The devil's in the details.
The devil's in the details.
And the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Ask your questions. You know, to talk to their previous landlords, talk to their cousin, whoever they're giving you. If it's their friend, like if their friend won't rent to them.
Yeah, that tells you something right there, right?
Yeah.
So what would be landlord and tenant dynamics, in your opinion? What are the key elements to maintaining a healthy and productive relationship between landlord and tenants? So I have tenants at my condo that I have. I had the one family, a couple that were there for 5 years. I gave them a little less than the market rate, a couple $100, but they were great. And anything they had a problem with, I had someone go and clean it up and fix it right away. So I was the ideal landlord. They were ideal tenant. So then I have another lady in there, you know, and my past tenant said he's the best landlord you ever have, right? So the son-in-law is a bank manager, and the daughter, I forget what she did, but she got a high job, whatever. The lady is 91 that's renting my condo, right? So the screen got broken. I had someone go repair the screen right away. A little handle got broken. Had someone go fix it or burn out light bulb. Every time. I said, just call me and I'll get it looked after for you. So no problems.
You respected them.
Yes.
So respect makes or breaks any relationship, right? I have some great tenants. Rob takes really good care of our tenants. If they ever need anything, you're right there. They want to be able to rely on you because they're the ones that are going to be taking care of your property. So if they can't rely on you as landlord, why should they care about, drug addicts coming to the property?
And that's what I've always told people about with investment. Some people want you to invest like in the Caribbean. Some people want you to invest in Calgary. Some people in Arizona and Florida. Now the problem with that, if there's a problem, you have to have hands-on property management that can deal with it. And that's the only way I would deal with that, right? Because I used to have properties all over the place, out abroad and whatever. But, when little things, it's so much easier if you're right there that you can have someone just go look after it immediately. So if you do have something abroad or far away, make sure you have a good property management that has the contacts that can look after it. But that's where you can lose half of your profit is in property management.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. You got to keep your expenses low. And that's why it's so important to invest in your backyard because you are there to take care of things that need tending to.
Yeah, that's what I always say. Don't invest too far away because otherwise you can't really service it and you can't see it or maintain it. Like, I rented it out to these people. I've never been in the condo and they've been in there over a year now, right? So I don't need to go there.
Well, as in my experience, as long as you're respectful to your tenants, as long as you're courteous to them, you play by the rules. I mean, at the end of the day, we're people.
Yes.
We're people.
So what would common missteps, based on your experience, what are some common missteps landlords make that could easily be avoided with the right knowledge or advice?
They're not responsive.
They
just ignore the phone calls. They ignore the text messages. They ignore repair requests. And communication is key. You have to be able to communicate with your tenant. Whether they're calling you to tell you that the stove broke down, fix it. Send somebody, like you did, to change that light bulb, to change the handle. Because once you become a ghost, your tenant will too.
It's funny that, sometimes depending on the age of certain things, appliances sometimes get old. So burners start to maybe burn out or something in the fridge, the light or something like that. And so the tenant calls, and you want them to call you because if they don't, you don't know what you don't know because you're not going to inspect the house. So you might think it's a bother, but I would sooner have someone call me, tell me what's wrong, that I can get it set up to be fixed in not too long a time, because otherwise they get upset the longer you ignore them, right? They're paying rent, and you're not. They've got something broken, so they're not happy, and then something else breaks, and then it starts up even more so. But if you have a good rapport with them, like I have in mine, it's easy. No worry, we know we'll get it fixed.
No headaches. Absolutely. Couldn't
right?
agree with you more.
So what legal advice for new landlords just in the market would be indispensable that they should, one thing they should do each and every time?
Well, firstly, always vet your prospects. That's number one. You can eliminate 99% of headaches by properly going through the paperwork. If you don't, then you're taking on the risk that, in a few months, this person may have problems finding cash to pay your rent. I mean, we had a vacant unit at one of our properties, and the people that were going through were telling Rob, I'll figure out, I don't have a job right now, but I'll figure out how to pay the rent next month.
That's reassuring.
We'll figure it out. And it's mind-boggling as they have landlords. How are these people telling their landlords, I'll figure it out, and the landlords are saying, he's the guy. He's the one for my property. How is this happening? Just please use your common sense.
They say gut instinct. That's why myself personally, I would always go and meet somebody because women have women intuitive, men have gut instincts. So if your gut is telling you something's not right, do some further research because most times that are not, it's correct, right? So a long background history goes a long way because once they got in that door, everything's out the window. It's a whole new ballgame. And the tenants know more than 99% of the landlords. They know their rights more than anyone else. So here's something. Alpish Paddle asks this. If they cancel insurance after showing to the landlord, then exactly, you don't even know.
Can we talk about the risks to owning rental properties? Because this is one risk.
Yes.
Non-payment of rent is just the tip of the iceberg because there are other risks involved with rental property ownership, like late payment, like insurance, like I'm going to move in other occupants, I'm going to get another roommate, I'm going to move in my kids or my parents or whatever, guests, other visitors without the permission of the landlord. Damages, another risk. So non-payment of rent is just the tip of the iceberg. It's not the only risk.
It's just the one that we all know more than anything else.
It's the most common risk.
Right?
That's right. No. Occupants are not protected in accordance to the Act. So as long as a landlord doesn't acknowledge them as a tenant, doesn't accept rent as a tenant, doesn't take maintenance directions or repair directions or requests from that occupant, then that occupant is just an occupant. They are just somebody like parents who are visiting from overseas, occupants, minors, right, living or the kids, occupants.
So what happens if, say my boyfriend moved in with me, but he's not on the boat now, we're living together.
So he's an occupant.
Okay.
That's right. A landlord cannot evict you for having another occupant. The only time that a landlord has a say is if you say to him, landlord, can you add my boyfriend to the lease? Then the landlord can say, sure, I need to see his employment income statement. Exactly.
But as a landlord, you don't have to take him on.
You don't have to take them on, but you can't also unreasonably withhold permission either.
So if I'm the landlord and I'm renting it out to you, and then you've got other person that's come and you said, I'm going to let them pay me rent and I'm going to help pay the rent. And so I can't do anything really about it.
It's another risk.
So, but I don't have to sign them up to
That's right. You don't have to. But if I say, Daryl, I want Rob to be on the lease. I want him as a tenant on the lease. And you say, okay, well, I need to see his paperwork. I need to see if he qualifies.
I have one of my builders, super nice guy, but he had the house next to him. I sold his other one there. He was living in himself. So we sold that and he moved in. He built the other one. He moved into that one. We sold that. And then the other one he had was an older house and it's been rented out to the original person. He rented it out to some guy, but he's been long gone. So now his girlfriend was there, but they broke up in an ugly fight, whatever. So he left. So she stayed there. So then I don't know but now it's handed down to 2 or 3 different people that nobody has a contract for that property, and they have it like the drugs and the dogs, and they live right beside this beautiful custom house. Oh, they're terrorizing this poor guy. I feel so bad. I told him to call you. I don't know if he ever did, but I need to check with him again because I thought he was going to have a heart attack.
What a mess.
He was just going like, and he's waiting to get to the tribunal before he can get in there and tear it down. He wants to tear it down, right? But they're not paying rent. They got, parties there all the time, right? So not always, like I said, it's a 2 or 3% of tenants that give them all bad names. So, having a portfolio of a second home or third home is still a good bet because you think you bought 10 years ago, that property probably 2.5 times its value. So let's say you bought a place for $300,000 for argument's sake. So it's 10 years later, that property's worth probably $1.1 million today. So your portfolio has increased by $800,000. So how would that work on my tax system? Now, I bought it for $300,000. It's 10 years later. I had it rented out to absolutely great tenants, no headaches, and now I want them to move out. They're on month to month, and what happens here? First, my taxes.
Well, you have to talk to an accountant for your taxes. So I can't comment on the taxes.
Okay.
But definitely, real estate is still the best investment. If you can get somebody else to pay off your
The mortgage. Well, that's what I'm
yeah.
saying. They had the person in there 10 years, and they got it at 300, and today it's worth 1.1, right? They've got a nice little profit there.
Nest egg there.
So they have to pay capital gains from the time they bought it. Now, they could write off all their mortgage money. They could write off their taxes that they did it, cleaning supplies. So they would have all that opportunity. So at least your profit doesn't show this. You could bring it down
have some
somewhat.
benefits.
Yeah. But you're still going to walk away with a nice nest egg, when you want to retire. And that's the beauty of buying
That's
an
right.
investment property because
That's right.
it gives you a double bang, right? You got XYZ for your house, but you have 1 or 2 other properties. Now you have 3 times it. You got a lot more invested where you can save up for your kids or whatever. Now, navigating the landlord and tenant board, appearing before the landlord and tenant board can be daunting for many. Can you share insights on how landlords can better prepare for hearings? Like, I would never
Yes.
go to hearing without you.
Never go to a hearing without
You.
my team.
Yeah, that would be the number. I would say that myself. And even me being in real estate, if I had to go there, I would call Bita and team to come in to represent me, without a doubt. Right? And I've been doing this 34 years. But I don't want to represent myself. I'm going to go look for legal help that knows it better than I do. Right? So I would say the same thing. I mean, there is other places other than Stonegate, whatever. So go to one of them at least, but don't go there by yourself.
Never go by yourself. There are so many matters that I'm still observing. I still observe hearings every day. I have it playing in the background so I can hear what's going on. And sometimes I hear matters where the landlord is self-represented, and there are so many. I mean, it's like watching a plane crash. Why did you not just pay what it costs to have somebody else make this better for you?
Because the problem is they haven't had rent for 9 months. They're totally fed up, and they figured, oh, I'm going to win this very easily. And that's the mistake they make, right? Because, like I said, that tenant knows the rules inside out. And the landlord is just like hoping that he's going to win just by default, more or less.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
No. And how long it takes them
No.
to get there. So they say if you haven't served them properly, you got there, then you got to start all over again. Is that not true?
You got to start all over again.
Yeah.
So it's not only the procedure, you're lucky if you get heard. Sometimes the board schedules 50, 60, 70 matters to be heard, and they don't get to you. And you have to wait until the matter's rescheduled.
Costly.
Time consuming.
So, from your experience, what are the key legal steps a landlord should take before receiving a tenant for non-payment of rent or other lease violations?
Well, if a tenant is late, the landlord should not wait to stop a legal proceeding because it's going to take time to get to the board. So rent is considered late the day after it's due.
1 day.
1 day. Serve that notice. What's the worst that can happen? So the tenant pays late and they void it, right? But if they don't pay, then you have to start a proceeding, which is going to take time. So never wait. Never wait. I see many landlords say, I'm trying to be a nice guy. Look, the board doesn't care how nice of a guy you are. The board only cares if you commence a proceeding properly. So definitely don't wait.
Yeah, because what happens is, like, as a landlord, sometimes I go cash my tenant checks late, right? So, most times they're not. Sometimes you can't get the tenant check right on time because they only pay month by month. They're on month to month then. And, they're 3, 4, 5 days, 6 days late. And they pay you, but it's always 5 or 6 days later. So what Bita's saying is you should register right there the first time. And when they give you that check, they got a clean slate again. But at least you've started
That's
a
right.
documentary with that.
That's right. And let them know, hey, Daryl, I have to serve you with this because you're late, but you can easily void it and by paying, and then don't be late next month.
Yeah. Because it's the time that you wait. So what would be preventive measures? What are preventive measures landlords take to minimize legal risks and ensure compliance with local housing laws?
Oh, that's a good one.
Right?
Yes. So there's the Rental Housing Enforcement Unit, and they are like the police officers that, they give a quicker response to landlords or tenants. So either the landlord or tenant can call them for I'm going to say, quote unquote, information or advice. Definitely contact them if there's a bylaw issue, mostly with respect to maintenance, repairs, legalization of a unit. They are definitely your buddies.
Here's a little message from somebody. Oh, Vika. Vika's not here. She in her office? Where is she? What happens if a landlord put a tenant into a unit while the condo was in occupancy stage, and now the condo, this is really a good one, and now the condo is bankrupt, and landlord not able to close on the unit? Does the landlord still have a landlord rights?
That's a really good question.
Because I have one right now. Mm-hmm. She's in occupancy. She just got occupancy, so she's my past client. So she wants me rent it out. It's a 1,000 square foot place right downtown. So, the payments are about $5,000 for the mortgage. So she can't even get the money to cover the mortgage, but we got to put it under occupancy. So, but between my time you got occupancy, and then that landlord went bankrupt, and they got to foreclose on them.
Whoever is taking over, the mortgage holder, whoever is taking over, becomes the landlord. The tenant is protected in this case, is what I'm saying.
But I'm not talking about the tenant. I'm talking about the original landlord.
Oh, what happens to the
right?
original?
So I'm the landlord. You're the development company. Mm-hmm. This is my tenant. So I'm the landlord to this tenant under occupancy, but you're the landlord, and now you've gone bankrupt. So you're now the new financial, say Bank of Montreal, whoever, and you've come in and you take it over. So you would take everything as we had it written.
Exactly as you have. The
right?
tenant is
they
protected.
would have to honor that.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
So if I had a contract, if I was like, I'm the owner of the occupancy, we haven't closed, I still get to follow my contract verbatim. The financial people that took over have to allow that to follow through, right? So, the builder went bankrupt. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. The builder, like, look at one. One's already gone under 3 times. It's supposed to be 82 towers. It's supposed to close almost 3 years ago. It's still only at 40, right? So it's changed hands a few times, right? So that's a logistical nightmare. You know, sometimes you got to live through these storms. So all those people that are thinking about being investors, guys, it's like anything. When something is bad, you only hear the bad things about it. But, you know, investing has gone on for years and years, and it's even bigger and more so than ever before. Because, like I said, when we had all these condo towers, most of them are not end units. Probably, 60% are vacant landlords tenanted out. So it gives them an investment, and it gives someone a place. They say we got a shortage of housing, so it gives someone else a place to live. So it's helping the whole economy. Giving builders jobs, building contractor jobs, people do appliances, window coverings, give cities more taxes when you do land transfer, even taxes collecting, right? But you always have to realize, I know some people that have like 100 doors, right? They don't even work. Their work is just manifesting and looking after their property portfolio. They're like you. They just have a property management that looks after 100 doors, right? So, you should still, listen, any person that has real money, they have a lot of properties. So, one, you have to make sure you do your homework. Do it properly. Just don't jump in without doing some research, right? Because, if you got a 700,000 or 800, whatever number it is, you need to protect that asset. It's that simple, right? So, I'm bought a new condo. I got where I can now they got the assignment, so they're trying to resell it. But
Right.
so if they can't sell it, then they can't afford, because the mortgages, so they got to rent it out. So what about with the foreign students and that?
So it doesn't matter if they're citizens or foreigners or refugees or whatever the case is. Housing, landlords cannot discriminate against anyone when they're offering
They shouldn't.
property for sale. They should not.
Right? Like
They're opening themselves to human rights tribunal.
Yeah, like I got this one person, and they said, we only want to rent out to so and so. I said, don't tell me that. I have 34 different nationalities in my team. I said, I don't aspire to that. I said, we're all equal. So legally, you cannot do that, right? So
And criminals included, right?
Criminals
Criminals
are the other one.
even need housing.
yes, right. We all make mistakes.
That's right.
Right, and
That's right.
and
I have so many landlords who call me and they say, well, can I check their criminal background? No, because even criminals need housing.
and they're allowed to be protected, right?
That's right.
So they made a mistake in the past, right? So yeah, you just really have to do as much research as you can to protect yourself.
Do your due diligence.
Ever seen the landlord-tenant laws evolve over your career? And from you've been doing this 20 years. What is the major impact? I'd say it's gone more to the tenants in the last number of years.
Well,
right?
remember, it's not the law that's broken. It's the system, the delays. And in my opinion, the delays add to the frustration of the landlord. Because if it's going to take up to a year to get a tenant out, that is a year of perhaps non-payment
Income,
of rent.
yes.
Exactly. And landlords, especially the small ones, have to be able to budget for that, which they often cannot because
Well,
they rely on that rental income.
Of course they do, right? And that's the saddest part. And I don't know what the answer is for that, because it's just something that moves forward, and I
Keep that in mind for the next election.
well I don't need to think about the next election. I think of how that one party got on this time, again, because most people I talk to say, no, I wouldn't vote for that person. We're not naming names, Trudeau, but you know who you are. Right? Really. you have to have it equal for both parties, and that's the way, I always remember having lots of rental properties, never having any issues ever. And believe it or not, I've never had, in all my rental properties I had, never an issue with the tenants or them with me. It's always been like best friends.
That's right.
Right? So you mentioned it earlier. It's how respect. Number one, if you're the landlord, respect them. Make sure that they're looked after, number one. Then they'll respect you. I see lots of places that are really beat up. So if the place is really beat up, then you're going to get cheap rent, and chances are you're going to probably attract people that are not going to look after it either.
It's like dating, right?
Yes.
If you show up to a date looking like a slob, what do you think you're going to attract?
Right?
That's right.
So I always tell all my landlords, I said, guys, you need to give a fresh coat of paint. You clean it up. Tracy, remember that place we just had downtown on Brunel? Right, Robin's place. So we had sold her the place. We rented out, but then that guy ended up renting out to somebody else. And and that's about 6 years ago. And oh my God, that place was a disaster. It was like it was like a bomb went off in there. So we had to I said, if I go to rent it out like that, I'm going to get only maybe 50% of what the normal rents are. And the people I'm going to put in there are going to be really bad.
Right.
So we had contractors paint, oh my God, they did so many things and cleaned it up. And now hopefully they got nice tenants in there that are going to look after it.
So
right?
Can I tell a story?
Of course.
So
stories are great.
Yeah, stories are great. So you learn a lot from
Yes.
stories. So we acquired a small building in Bradford, and we acquired this special lady. And this special lady, she was very handsome. She had men coming to her unit at all odd hours of the night. 50, 60, 70.
You're busy.
She is very busy,
Running
yeah.
a very lucrative
Very
business,
lucrative.
no doubt.
They're very lucrative. And she was a disaster. She, and her
Lots
unit.
of drugs, probably.
Lots of drugs. Booze, cocaine. She was cooking meth. She was hiding them behind baseboards. But that wasn't the problem. Here was the problem. Well, upon many. She was on certain type of medication, and the medication that she was on hardened her stool. And her unit was above a commercial unit, which was a toy store. And she would go to the bathroom, and this one particular time she went to the bathroom, and her stool clogged a pipe, which caused a burst to the toy store downstairs.
Got flooded.
Over $70,000 in damages. Over $70,000 in damages. And
Insurance must have loved that
insurance loved it, right? Loved it all over that one. But again, her rent was paid on time, right? It came from a third party. Other than those two issues, she was okay. We had to jump through hoops. It took us over a year to get her out. And that's because the guy who owned the building prior to us, just let anyone into the building. Didn't care. So when we took over, we got her out, finally got her out after over a year, we renovated. And when I say we, I mean Rob.
Yeah.
Renovated. Well,
they can't talk about that.
All right. I have to say.
Hey, I didn't find any.
Right. Well, when we called the police, because you have to call the police, you can't just transport that to the police.
You guys actually found something?
Lots behind the baseboards.
It was all over the house.
All over the house.
And when you're that stoned, you forget. Hey, when you're that stoned, you forget where it is.
That's right. You forget where you put it.
Right.
And can you believe? And very disappointing. The police didn't really care.
No, they don't. They can't. Listen.
Oh, that's a great open house.
Right.
The drugs. Look at cars today, right? They said they got 600 cars in the last little bit in Montreal there. As a car owner, I'm like, they need to have stricter laws because they're breaking in the front doors, getting the keys, and I'll tell you a story. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell it. I'm on air and everything, but anyway, I'm going to tell it anyway. So I went to my Mercedes dealership the other day because I needed to get some things out here. It was late, and I wanted to look at there was a couple little things I just wanted to look at the car. So the little young girl I met the first time I went in there, and there was like about 10 people around or whatever. And I'm like, hey, what's going on, guys? And she went out and took the guy for a brand new Mercedes SUV for a test drive. And she said, yeah, he was just some bigger guy and his teeth were all out, whatever. And then there was another guy in a Range Rover. And he followed me, got on the 407. He says, get the F out. He just stopped. He said, get the F out. And it was raining. She had to get out, and he left her on the side of the road and went, right? So you got to do your due diligence in anything you do. I felt bad for this. You know, she's only, I don't know, maybe 25, 26. And I, like terrified. So that's what these guys, they come to your house. They're looking to smash in the door your keys because normally everybody just put the keys right there. So put them in a strong box, or as the cop says, just leave the keys in the car. Let them take the thing, right?
They just figured out we have seasonal criminals now. They come with visa to work here for 3 months and steal whatever, give it to somebody, get their cash, and go back to the country.
Yeah, it's. But yeah, no matter what we have today in society, we need to do our due diligence. Like they bought the building and they acquired that tenant, needless to their knowledge, that they, a little whoever, what they were getting. They didn't have any clue because always the landlord, they're not so bad. They paid the rent on time, and they paid the rent on time.
That's what we were told.
They had
She pays on time.
They had lots of cash.
Yeah.
She was a cash cow, man. Or he was, he was, whatever it was. Right? They were a cash cow, right? Dealing cash, they're pretty good. But yeah, lots of times that big place in out in Markham there, that big mansion, it was a gambling casino and brothel, right? Like 7,000 square feet. The freaking cars were lined up every night, and they went and raided it. But they couldn't. They're not much. They just shut it down, but not much they could do, right? So just be careful on who you're going to rent out to. I remember lots of the houses that I sold. They were buying all the drug places, like the big farms, all the horse farms and stuff like that, right? And then some of the houses, they were doing the grow-ups right in the houses, nice luxury homes, right? Now, I don't see there's much of that now, but in that peak a few years back, 3-4 years ago, it was crazy, right? I remember going to a place the police had me go, and I had to put on all this gear and stuff like that. And I couldn't believe what the walls were all swelled out and stuff like that, right? It was just crazy. But they bought the house. They didn't, they were buying the houses, not renting them. So at least when they bought it, you got your cash, right? So then you don't care what happens. But, those guys had no intention of moving in. They were just buying it for drug houses, right? And even the condos, they were doing that downtown. They were doing the double and triple lines into the apartments and condos. And doing the grow up for the pot and stuff, right? So, do your homework. Well, because they got lots of cash. They got lots and lots of cash, right?
That's what they told us. They pay the rent on time, like clockwork, no problem.
Yeah, they could probably pay it better than anybody else. Just a little pocket cash for them because they always walk around with big wad of bills, right? Well, we're seeing a lot more of that today now.
Yeah, which
right?
is also illegal.
But I see the landlords are I know that, Hannibal, you had that when the people were trying to get all the money up front. People were asking for 1 year of cash up front. Guys, that's not legal. They're not.
So here's what's happening. So the tenants will agree to it because of the bidding wars, and they don't want to lose out. And they'll pay the landlord the check, no problem, and then they get the key, and then they move in, and then guess what? A couple of weeks later, there's an application through the board for a refund because you, landlord, took an illegal deposit.
And then you got a tenant in there that you can't get out.
So not only do you have to pay them back, hopefully they pay the rent next month.
It's like letting them know that you have power.
That's right.
So you see that quite often now,
That's right.
like when you guys are going out. Where's Fernez? So you've come across that a few times, have you not? Where they wanted bigger deposits, right? How much are they asking sometimes for these places? How much? A whole year.
Sometimes it's 6. It usually comes when the clients who just landed, they don't have anything.
Yeah, well, we know that.
Like for the
No,
security.
but that's why. Because they don't have a background check. So the reason they're getting by that is they're getting 6 months to 1 year paid up front. But they can go the next week to the landlord and go and put a complaint in saying they were forced to get the place, paying 6 months to a year. As a landlord, you have to pay them back, and then they're supposed to pay regular monthly rent.
That's right.
Right?
I got a question I want to ask you. In a scenario as such, because I get a lot of calls, they want to do certain things, and I try to show properties to them. I speak to them and say, this is how it goes. I don't suggest. If it happens that goes through, because the people who just landed here, they don't know the ropes. They don't know the law. They don't know what they can do. But later on, they're going to talk to some friends, and they're going to say, oh, your agent did this to you. You got to go, are we reliable for this?
Yes.
So we should say
Agents
no
are
law.
professionals. You are holding a professional license, right? So they rely on the information that you provide them, the advice that you provide them. The thing is that if you can be well equipped with the knowledge, but then you put an offer in and the listing agent says, no, I want one year's up front. And then you try to educate the other side, and the other side says, no, I'm going to accept this guy's offer. You're not cooperating. That's the problem. That's why it's common practice, but it's not legal, because if the tenant says, if the tenant's relying on your advice and later on they have to pursue, or the landlord has to pursue legal action or legal advice to help defend an application, they're always pointing the finger at the agent's advice. And RICO is not in the business of protecting agents. RICO protects the public.
The public is Rico's client.
That's
so
right.
the either the buyers or the sellers or the tenants. But they're not there to protect their agents.
That's right.
So this is even if I educate the tenant to say, listen, we just got to comply with what they're asking right now, but you have an option to do such. Once you got key, once you got move in, you can call the landlord and say, listen, these things are not legal. I would like it if I can have it back. Even if I leave them with that knowledge, because that thing to be facilitated and that's executed, we still reliable for that?
Absolutely. Because what you're telling them is sign a contract
And then
break it. Yeah. Because remember, even though there's a landlord and tenant issue, there's still a contract. So
And that's your part.
If you look at it the other way, can the landlord sue on the tort of contract law through the small claims court? Possibly. That's right.
So guys, when I guess it would have been last year was really, really hard to find, like, for renters. You know, people, there wasn't enough homes. People didn't, and there was no movement then. Because when there's movement, the renters were staying in their place during COVID. They didn't have to get out. So you normally have that typical migration. Some stay a year, some stay 2 years, but they were staying another year or two longer. And then the rents were going up. So now we're not moving because we were only paying $2,000, and now the going rate for this place is $2,500. Now we got to pay an extra $500. We can't find anything if we leave this place, so we're staying here. And this is what even today, like I just listed the place today. So you put the person in COVID, it was only $2,050, but today it's $2,500, $2,600 all day long. So I'm going to try and get one of you guys to help this tenant go find a place. I said, we'll try and help him find a place. If he can find a place, he's going to leave easy. Can't find a place, then I don't know what'll happen, right?
In that scenario, why is if you guys ask the tenant to vacate?
Yes. Yeah.
But then don't you have to pay like the tenant, at least a month's rent or something?
We have no problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
But
not.
that's a thing I've been encountering recently as well.
Yeah, the
Like,
landlord will give him a month's rent easy, no problem.
A month's rent
In
is
this
nothing.
particular case,
If you can get away with a month's rent,
That's right.
do a rain dance.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? One at a time. Hold on, Fernez. Come up to the microphone because we have people out there. We got a big crowd out in there.
Hello.
So
Hi.
Fernez does lots of leases. So
Yes.
she goes through lots of situations.
5 months ago, I had a client that they were newcomer. We just rented the place. They paid full year month, like upfront 12 months. And 2 days ago, she just called me. She said that my house has a rat, and the landlord went there and he found about those like rats in the place, and they are trying to fix it. But my client, she just called me and she's saying that I don't want to leave this place. I have phobia and I just want to just leave this place and I want my money back. So the thing is that she just realized that having those just giving all those money was illegal here. Then what, like, is there anything that
Anything that she can do? Firstly,
Yeah.
how many rats is she seeing?
she said
Looking at one,
she said it's a
Listen,
family.
listen. The problem is, if a place is rat or bug infested, you're gonna know.
yeah,
It's pretty hard to hide.
that's right.
But maybe someone left the door up and a rat got in. Listen, I had mice get into my house. I don't have mice in my house, but I live by a ravine. Someone left the garage door opener. Maybe the front door was open. So they want to go in and have a little food, right?
No,
They're hungry.
she's saying that they are living in the wall and they are like they are a family.
So she doesn't know if it's a family. She just knows that there's living in a wall. But
She already
has
saw them because they
Yeah.
just
she has to give the landlord the opportunity
To correct it.
Correct it. Yeah. She
Yeah.
can't just say, "Well, I just have 5 or 2 mice and I want to move." No, because the lease is still a contract.
yeah. But the thing is that she just realized that the money that she paid, she wants all the money back, and she just called me and said,
She wants the money back for what?
the whole year upfront that she already paid. She just realized that it's illegal here, and she can't have her all money back from the landlord. And she,
Well, maybe yes or maybe no.
Yeah, how long
Right?
has she occupied the property?
5 months.
So she would have paid already for 5 months. So she can't.
She just paid for like
the
the
1
5
year.
months and like,
So she can't get the 5 months back for she already lived there.
Yeah,
but she can't just have the
the
rest.
balance. If she goes through the board and she advocates her position, if the board sides with her, she'll get an order for that money to be returned.
Okay, what about me as an agent? Can she do something?
The
to
board
me?
has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
None of those people have anything to
Yeah.
do with you. You're on your own.
You're on your own.
Okay.
The problem is that, and this is why it's so important for agents to advise their clients properly. And the first piece of advice that agents should be saying is, client, obtain independent legal advice. I can't give you legal advice. Don't offer them, because then they're going to say, my agent said this.
So,
That has nothing to do with
like,
you.
they should see, number one is the landlord willing to rectify the issue? If they liked it enough and they're willing to rectify the issue, then there should be no issue anymore, right? So that's the first step that I would do. Go see if the landlord will rectify the issue, and maybe they could give him a little gift or something,
Got
right?
it.
That's how I would try it. Try it with kindness,
Okay.
right? Otherwise, it's going to be an ugly situation
mess.
that nobody probably wants.
Okay. Thank
Right.
you.
So here, I'll tell you one, and I told you guys, but I'd like to say it on air. So I went to the hockey game on 2 nights ago. And so I was sitting there with my buddy Brent, and then another guy and his little daughter came in and sat beside us. So we happened to know the guy. His brother was a friend of mine, and Brent knew him. So and then he introduced me to his daughter. Her name is Chloe. My granddaughter's Chloe. Now this is more for the audience because you guys heard this. So, it was her first game ever. So she had gold leaves here, whatever. So, I was chatting her up and having fun, giving her little high fives and stuff like that. So the mother sent me a message yesterday morning, unbeknownst to me. She said, Daryl, I hear you sat beside my daughter, Chloe, last night at the Leafs game. She thought you were so great and made her experience there even better. Thank you for being your fun, kind, great-spirited man. Her grandfather passed away last year, and she said you were like a nice, kind grandpa to her. Big heart, so thank you, big heart. So I had sent her a message that said, here's my telephone number, and I have a Carlton the Bear that I'm going to send to her, whatever. But her eyes were like this. They were just glued. She was just smiling the whole time. And then she was leaving. She'd give me a big hug and that, right? And that's why I told these guys earlier, that just be kind to everybody. So if you're the landlord, be kind to your tenants. If you're the tenant, be kind to your landlord. Don't be an asshole. So an asshole gets another asshole. I don't care what it is, right? So treat others the way you want to be treated. That's simple. And that's what I tell my landlords. I said, guys, let's paint this place up, clean this up. How would you feel if you just want to come in here, right? So that's what we do. Paint it up, clean it up. So if you don't, you're probably going to get something that's going to be bad, and it's well-deserved. So, again, it works both ways. So that's why I say I never had a problem with any of my tenants, and I had lots of places I rented out. So here's one here for us here. I saw a list that said if you're a single person, rent is $2,000. If you're a couple, it's $2,600. Is that allowed? Someone want to answer that for me? No. Is that allowed? No.
I don't think I need to answer that
No.
one. No.
Hey, how come someone never put their name on that one? Oh, so here's another one from Vika. What are the tenant signs that it was a voluntary prepayment?
No.
Landlord and Tenant Act, guys. You have to know if you're going to be in real estate and you're going to represent tenants or landlords, you need to somewhat understand the Landlord and Tenant Act. Period.
Yes. And you can't use certain words or terms to kind of circumvent the act, right? You can't, no.
Look, you're a couple. You're paying more money now.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Well, I was 2 when I got the place, but now I'm 1. So can I have a discount of a half?
Yeah.
Right?
No, it doesn't
Come on,
work
guys.
bad.
Listen, when something sounds stupid,
Come on, man.
chances are it is stupid, right? If you treat honestly, I tell this to any homeowners out there that are thinking investing, get a good realtor, get a good paralegal, and go find a place that is close to you, that meets your budget, and it's good to invest. You're going to increase, like maybe you got younger kids, you're going to downsize one time or another. Go invest. Go build your portfolio up. Yeah, will there be something maybe go wrong? Yeah, but you know what? You could get in an accident on the street on the way home. Listen, life is not about everything's easy every single day. There's going to be issues and everything. Take precautions. Do whatever you can to safeguard, one of your biggest assets, which is your personal house, is probably your biggest asset, unless you're a big business owner. But, if you're going to be investing, make sure you do it diligently and look after I and T's and do it correctly, right? What would you tell them? Igor, you want to say something?
Question.
I'm going to ask her
Question.
something first. You want to say something right now?
No, I couldn't have said it better than you.
Okay, come on up, Igor. So Igor's our office manager.
I met him.
Yeah.
Hi, Igor.
Hey, thank you for being here. So I have a question from a personal experience, and I have a friend in my building who's going through this. So I'm renting from
We
a
pay
large...
double for that.
Huh?
We're going to have to pay double for that. 2 people.
Hey, if we have to pay, we'll do it. So question. So we're renting from a large property management company, not a private landlord, and it's a building. It was built like in the 60s, 70s, so it falls under jurisdiction and laws that we all kind of know about. What happens with parking? So when I rented and I applied for my unit, I was given an incentive of 1 year free parking. I was told after that 1 year, I would have to pay. I have a friend who's also in the same position. In that time, when I started receiving my rent notice, I actually got an eviction notice for my parking only, not for my personal unit, because there was a 2-3 months where I just forgot, like, oh crap, I gotta start paying for parking now. And that's what happened. So I'm like, can they evict or remove my car from the parking spot, even though the rent is part of my agreement? Or is that two separate agreements and I have to work on that? Like, what?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Is parking included in your lease? What does your lease say?
So so this actually more complicated. I didn't want to get into it, but they changed property management companies. So my original lease.
But we
my
gotta
original
go by
lease
your
had-
original.
Yeah.
That's where you got to
Yeah.
go.
My original lease
They have to
says that I
go
have
with it.
parking included in my rent. However, it was free, so it was a zero amount. And then there's a subsequent clause: after the year, you will have to start paying.
How much?
However,
How much?
Hold on. However, I was never told hey, your parking is now $100 on top. I'm actually paying for 2 separate rental scripts, and I don't know why it's not included or why I'm paying
Okay.
2 separate lines.
Okay, so I can't give you legal advice
Yeah.
because I haven't looked.
Yeah, I'm
at
good. I
anything.
paid all my thing. I just
Yeah.
wondering why it's 2, not 1.
So parking is not covered in accordance to the act unless it's included in your lease. If the lease says it comes with parking, then they can't take away that amenity.
Okay,
If
that makes
they
sense.
take away that amenity, they have to reduce your rent.
Okay.
If there's a secondary spot that you're renting separate from your lease, that the act does not protect you.
It
with
protects
respect to
them.
that.
Yes, I understand. Okay.
The parking, things like parking, is covered under the Repairs and Storage Liens Act. And again, I don't do that type of law. So if you look at termination of the agreement, the secondary spot, whatever is included in the Storage and Repairs Liens Act will apply.
So right now I have my parking included in my rent. I'm just paying it on 2 separate lines, but I will not if I stop, they can't just remove my car separate from me. They would have to take both of us together, right?
Right.
No,
Well,
no,
If it's
if
included.
it's a second
no, they
spot,
don't because
No, I'm talking about the one spot that is included in my rent. I'm not talking
Okay.
about a second spot.
if it's included in
Yep.
your rent, it's included for your use.
Okay, so they can't tow my car.
No.
Okay.
No,
So if
they
I stop
can't-
paying rent, they can't move my car.
No.
not
Okay.
at all. No.
I have a friend who was told by
it's
the
the
building
same
because
thing.
of
If you
that,
don't
so
pay
we're
rent,
wondering.
it's like if you don't pay rent, they can't just lock your door and throw
That's
you out.
right. They need
Okay.
It's the same
order.
thing. They would have to do the whole
That's
order.
right.
So they
but if
rent-
it's a secondary unit
Yes,
that
yes.
wasn't on that
No, we're not
contract,
talking about secondary.
then they
I
could
wish I had
actu-
2 cars.
then
That's right.
then they could tow your car away.
That's right.
Okay, so
Right?
okay, good. So,
So
I
check
had
your lease.
Well, I was gonna say, so I have an incident where it was a friend in my building,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Hey, they towed my car because they said I didn't pay rent." I'm like, "Well, if it's included in your rent, how could they tow your car? You're not 2 separate entities. You're one." She's like, "Oh, I don't think I have a. It's included." I'm like, "Okay, well, you're on your own."
And even when you had the 1 year rent free,
Yes,
they would have to stipulate how much
yes, it was 1 year, and then afterwards there was a clause saying that on this date you will start paying for your rent.
how much it would have to.
I was
would
at
have-
$95.
So $95. So
Yeah, yeah.
95 with HST or without HST, right?
It's-
Well, because there's
It's a service they're offering.
it's a service. Like I pay HST here.
I know it's a residential building. I think they
Doesn't matter. You still have HST.
Oh, can I write that off?
If the parking spot does, not your rent.
Okay, good
Yeah.
to
So
know.
if you pay 95, you should pay 95 plus HST.
Okay, maybe they're just doing closes. So at the end
No,
of the
but
day,
that's up to them,
The
but they don't
spot's
take it.
included,
Yeah,
and they cannot remove my car even if I don't pay rent.
even if you don't pay rent.
They
Okay,
would
good
have
to
to
know.
fight you,
If
take you
you
like
had
a tenant not paying rent.
Yeah.
If you had
Okay,
a
good.
locker,
Yes.
it's no different.
Okay.
They
Okay, so
can
as long as
only
it's included.
evict you, your locker, your parking with an order from them.
So my condo, I rent out my parking spot, the locker, and the condo. It's all one parcel.
Okay,
There's
good.
no difference. Now, if I had a second parking and I rented that out for $100 a month, that would have to be on a separate contract just pertaining
Yes,
to
yes,
that
yes,
rent.
yes. Okay, so
Right?
the building's in trouble for removing her car if it's included in her
100%
rent. If
they
it's
are.
included.
If it's included, check
All
your
right.
lease.
Yeah, 100% they would be, right? Good question.
Yes,
Oh,
of
it's-
course. Come on up.
I'm working with this lead who is an immigration consultant, and he's doing this for 3 years or something. But he can't. He's self-employed, and he can't show pay stubs or T4s. But he's given me his bank statement with over $150,000 in savings, and regularly like $5,000-6,000 of income coming in, but no landlords want to approve him for this. I mean,
He's not showing any income. He's getting money, like FinTrack.
Yeah.
As they're supposed to give us their FinTrack, their license, and everything like that.
Right.
And that's to stop money laundering. So what what it sounds like to me, and you probably say the same thing, if he's got like $100,000 in his bank, if you're going to go to get a mortgage, they're going to know where that $100,000 came from, right? Because if you say you got a job, but no job's supposed to pay you cash,
Right.
you got to pay taxes on your pay. So he's evading taxes if he's just paying cash,
Right.
right?
Yeah. So
So,
we.
like, I'm a landlord. I wouldn't want to take him
Uh-huh.
because he's a shady guy to me.
Now he found he has a guarantor who has everything, $10,000, $12,000 income a month, and works for Bell Canada with excellent credit, but they don't even want to take the guarantor also.
So that's the original people that he tried to say he's got an income, but he didn't have an income, that he couldn't show an income.
No,
There's
there's
different people
Different
now?
people.
Yeah, because it was the first people. If I already said, no, I don't want to take these people because they look a little bit shady to me already.
Yeah.
So my gut feeling saying, I take shady people, I'm going to get screwed later on, so I don't want to take them. But now you're going there to a second party, right? And if he's getting paid by a job, does he get paid cash, this guy?
Well, he's depositing the money, right? So
But what do you mean
probably,
deposit?
probably it could
Does
be.
he work at a legal binding company that gives him a pay stub and pays him?
No, he
No.
has self-employed. So
He's self-employed.
Yeah,
So what's your question?
my question is, I mean, if somebody does not have pay stubs,
Yeah.
what else they can show? I mean, other
so
than the bank
self-employed, now
statement,
he's-
right?
Yeah.
So cash.
So
Let's say us, right?
Yeah.
We get all the income, and if we don't do a pay stub for ourselves,
yeah.
we
Does
don't
he have
maintain.
rental history?
Yes, but you have when you get paid, you're self-employed,
Yeah.
but you get a pay stub with it,
Oh yeah, yeah.
right?
Okay, yeah.
And if I'm a self-employed guy, so let's say I'm a landscaper for argument's sake, I do this lawn here, I bill them out here, they can pay me cash. Cash is legal, right? But I have a bill, so because legally I'm supposed to pay taxes and HST on the services. So if he's not paying it as a landlord, you're skeptical of taking this guy. That's why he's got to get a guarantor sometimes, right?
Does
Okay.
he have previous rental history?
Yeah.
Can he show rent receipts?
Yeah. That can be, but not in this market when it's like everything is so hot these days. So right? I mean,
No.
Well,
But
you-
he was renting somewhere previously.
right.
Yeah.
Where did he live?
in London, Ontario.
So it doesn't matter where you lived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could show that you rented, like she lives in London, she was my landlord. I lived there for 2 years. I could get a letter from her
rent
saying that I rent there for 2 years. I paid my bills on time. I was a good tenant, no problem. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
So rent receipts would suffice.
Rent receipts.
Right?
Okay.
And then one step further, if he wants to show his statements that this was the rent for April, this was the rent for May, this was, so they can see a pattern of the rent being paid on time, that would suffice too.
Okay.
Does that make
sense?
sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Good question. Nick, come on to the microphone.
Questions about that, just to follow up on that.
Here, Napoleon, come up here.
Just for
Napoleon, come up to the microphone.
for self-employed.
You're not exempt.
Yeah, for self-employed, do they still need to process like a T4A? I know there's T4A for self-employed, right? Is it just a receipt that they paid in the past, or do they still need the T4A
For what?
for them to
He's talking about
be
trying to qualify.
to qualify?
Oh, it's not requirement. It's not a requirement to show that.
Yeah.
But if you're okay to show that, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, but you might be tougher, Nick.
So thanks again for all the info. This is a four-legged question. One is just a general comment here. There were questions, well, my tenant didn't get approved because of this, that, and the other. Just to generalize this, a landlord does not need to explain themselves as to why they're not approving an application, correct?
Negative.
Oh, okay. So maybe it's not a general comment.
The landlord, if you are rejecting an application
Correct.
and the tenant is asking you why, you need to give them the why.
Well, usually there's a comment such as, I just don't have a great feeling, or the overall picture doesn't work. Is that sufficient, or?
That's not going to fly at the Human Rights Tribunal.
Okay, all right.
At all.
But that
This was a
I'll tell
general.
you,
That's
This
a
was
great
a.
question.
This
was
what
a.
Nick is asking right now,
It's a
guys.
great question.
This comes up all
the
the time.
time.
Of all the things, this would be the number one thing that comes up all the
Yeah.
time. That a landlord and says, I don't like the way they looked. I don't like the way they smelled. I don't like the way they dressed. And they're just telling us as their agent, and you're telling them, well, that's not sufficient to say you can reject them, right? And so they just say, well, we didn't like their qualifications or something. But now, and sometimes that'll just go away because they already know they got snubbed. But now they're a little pissed because this has happened to them more than once. Now they're saying, we want in writing why they're not taking our contract.
And tenants are getting so savvy now that if they're showing six figures and they're showing good credit and you don't accept them and they're a minority or whatever the case is, and their mind wanders to that, and if the landlord says, well, we're exploring other applications, it's not good enough anymore, and they pursue an application through the Human Rights Tribunal, the tribunal will order you to provide the reason.
So, again, just for clarity, order you as the landlord.
The landlord.
We have no. I specifically advise. Go through a process of indicating to my landlord clients that we can't really. We have to base it on such and such.
Yeah.
Now, commercial is a little different than residential because sometimes you look in commercial, so they're a little different there.
No, more specifically on the
but they are a
residential
little
side,
different.
though. So that was one. Thanks for clarifying that, by the way. Since we asked about the criminal background, somebody said, and you said that you can't discriminate, which I can see as to why. However, we do ask for a credit report, but we can discriminate on that.
You're not discriminating.
Well, we're saying you're not strong enough.
You're saying you're making a determination.
Just a comment.
Oh, it's a great question.
Yeah.
You're making a determination of their as to how financially responsible they are.
But what about as a
No, but
past criminal?
let me be clear.
Criminal is their personal life.
How responsible
The guy
are you
stole a
towards
bike
other
or something who was a kid, right?
This is not my belief, by the way. This is not a
No,
personal.
you're just asking a question.
Well,
No,
just
brother.
clarity-wise.
But the difference is their financial doesn't qualify them to take this unit. So you can refuse them on that.
So if they trashed the place and did 10 days in jail, does that qualify them for renting your place?
That's a call you're going to have to make. But remember,
All right.
if you make that call
Yeah.
and somebody complains, then
I'm not making any
No,
calls.
when I say
Just
you,
so
I mean
we're
the
So
clear.
landlord.
you're asking a question.
I got it.
Right?
I got it.
Listen,
Okay.
if you don't have the question,
No,
you'll
I-
never get an answer.
I hear you.
Is the homegrown situation that he talked about. They pay rent on time, they're not socially acceptable.
Right. Yeah. This is going into the third leg, meeting them, which I have, implemented. Even there, it's a little tough. So you're meeting them because everything else seems to be pretty good, their financials and all that. Meeting them really doesn't do anything because you can't really say, well, I don't like Igor's posture.
That's
So,
I don't like his part. You know what?
So
Nick,
really,
I have the same feeling you
meeting them
do. We're
doesn't-
equal.
meeting them doesn't do anything
No.
because we can't really reject them
no.
based on everything
In
else.
fact, it's often worse to meet them, because if they look good on paper and you meet them,
I
and
agree.
they didn't give you the
I
warm
agree.
and fuzzy feelings, then why? They'll ask you why.
Yeah. And then you get into,
And-
okay, and this was
right.
my real question here. Going back to the snow plowing, snow
grass cutting.
removal and grass cutting, I think I mentioned this last time as well. So we can't tell them it's their responsibility. I fully understand that. It's in the actual order, or the Ontario
Order,
Residential.
the law, yeah.
Yeah. I've been putting in a clause stating that the landlord agrees to, pay the tenant $1 a month to ensure that the lawn is mowed, and now is there a minimum compensation, like the $1 a month? Does that suffice?
Well, it has to be what's acceptable. It can't be I'm paying you $1.
Yeah,
because
that's
if
not
you're
gonna
to
work.
hire a contractor, it's not going
Right.
to cost you $1.
So
You could
would it
even
be
find a
prudent
little
to say
kid to do
that,
that.
listen,
I
I will
charge them
charge you $25.50 and I will pay you $50. I mean, if a landlord wants $2,500, we lease it at $25.50 and $50 a month goes towards you maintaining the lawn and so forth.
No.
Is that legit?
It has to
No.
be completely separate from the lease.
Oh, it is.
But you said you have a clause in the lease.
Well, now I do. I
No.
said,
Completely separate. The rent stays $25.50.
well, no, assuming that I'm going to proceed with that process, saying
No.
that I really want $2,500. However, I'm going to list for $25.50.
You don't play with the rent.
Okay.
Because once you start playing with the rent,
Yeah.
the tenant can say, well, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not providing you this service. And now guess what? The rent is $2,500 and not $25.50.
Oh, no, that's what I meant. So the lease will be $25.50.
Yeah.
Although I only wanted $25. You will be paying me $25.50. That's my lease. That's what I want. And at least the landlord knows that really I wanted $25, so that $50 I will give back.
But it has to be
Separate. Yes, separate.
So the rent is $25.50.
Of course.
Right.
So that's something that, because it is becoming
As-
more
as long as
of
it's
an
separate.
issue.
It's a
because
separate contract.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Nick.
That was it.
You got
Thanks.
time for one more question?
Yeah, that's one more question. Let's
One more question, Sammy. You've been waiting.
Yes. So,
One more. That's it.
first, I want to say thank you for the information that you shared. It was nothing but educational, and we all actually faced this. Now, a family rent 4-bedroom bungalow. Prior maturity of the term, one of them decides to either buy or go, and everybody with their income is under the lease. Is that a breach of contract? If they want to get out of it, can you evict because of it?
No, it's not a breach of contract. If there's 5 people on the lease and one buys, one gives their notice out,
Yeah.
the other 4 remain. Yeah,
And if you're going to hit problems,
the 4 of them are responsible.
does anything has to be added?
Here.
Amended should be added to the
You
contract?
can leave it as it is, and you have that either the N11 or the N9 given by the person who's no longer there as proof that there's now 4 instead of 5.
Okay. Thank
You
you.
don't need to touch anything.
Thank you.
Okay?
Hold on, Oasis. Wait, because we said no more questions, right? Because if there was, Maria had one question. Okay, do yours and we'll finish.
Okay.
Come up for the microphone.
So my question is about rent control. So you know how everything after 2016, 2018
November
now
15, 2018.
is not covered. What if I had a question from a client. They've lived in their house as a homeowner, and then they want to go and rent it, but they want to know if it would be under the no rent control or rent control.
So
How does that work?
If they live in the house, they want to move out and rent the house out.
Yeah.
So if the house was built after November 15, 2018, built and occupied, it's exempt. If they lived in the house before and they move out and they want to rent, it's rent controlled.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Perfect. That's all.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up. It is now 2:30. This is Daryl King sharing the mindsets of the Daryl King team here on Yonge Street with Bita, Lisi, and Stonegate Legal. I want to give a great big hand for Bita today. She's been absolutely exceptional, right? So, Bita, I'm going to put it in the loop here, but just tell them where they can get a hold of you,
Absolutely.
because
They
I highly
can-
recommend you. So,
Excellent. They can go to our social media. They can like us, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Stonegate Legal Services. and lots of good stuff, good information. And our contact information is on our website, stonegate.legalservices.ca.
And I'll tell you what, anybody, if any of you are not here and you just want to email us at Daryl King, tell us whether you like what we talk about today or you have some further questions. I can, instead of forwarding one question, if there's a few questions, maybe I could forward them to Bita and get them answered for you. So we'd like to thank everybody. I'd like to thank Bita and Robert for showing up today. I love them dearly, and it's so good to have this today. For everybody that's been on air and live here, I want to thank you for taking your valuable time and sharing this with us. Till next time on Sharing the Mindsets with Daryl King. See you then.